over and set up the Federal Reserve. And this is what Greenspan said from a speech televised from Jekyll Island, Georgia. He talks about bankers being criminal. If you're watching on prisonplanet.tv, you can see Bernanke kind of freak out and when he says this. But this is the rats knowing they're going to be blamed for what they've done, trying to imply that somebody else did it. Back when Greenspan got rid of the Glass-Steagall with Hillary Clinton and others, and their Democrat and the Republican helpers, you notice he hedged his bets then and said, this irrational exuberance. So here they are engineering this and now telling us about the problem. As I read earlier, Greenspan talking about, warning of weak dollar. Let's play this new clip. You'll hear the audio of your radio. You'll see it of your prisonplanet.tv of Greenspan making this admission of criminality in banking. Here it is.
There are two fundamental reforms that we need is to get adequate capital and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw.
So he's admitting fraud by the bankers, but how many of them are in jail? Got another clip coming up where he says the Federal Reserve's above the law. Max Keiser, who needs no introduction, syndicated radio host here on Genesis Saturday mornings, BBC TV show, RT TV show, Press TV show, MaxKeiser.com. Max, what is your take on what you just heard?
I am the puppet master.
It's you. You're the one that's behind it all.
That's the big news.
Well, Max, we're going to talk about that later, who you really think the puppet masters are. We know it's the Fortune 100 and the military-industrial complex. But what's your take on a bizarre Jekyll Island, Georgia meeting where they're talking about criminal bankers?
Right. Well, the word is fraud, and it's been fraud's been the key word for a long time now. If you listen to guys like Bill Black, who did the savings and loan cleanup, he cleaned up some of the fraud that was systemic at that time.
Professor William K. Black.
Yep, William K. Black. Now, nobody has really done anything to clean up the fraud in the system now. And if you look at this foreclosure nightmare, as we've been talking about, banks like on Wall Street have been committing fraud 5 different ways, plus they've created an assembly line of fraud, industrial strength fraud. It's not just a couple of one-offs, a couple of forged documents here, a little bit of shady dealing there. They've created this assembly line of fraud where they forged thousands of documents and they securitized hundreds of billions and trillions worth of fraudulent securities, and they sold these to banks all over the world. Then they created credit default swaps to make bets on the very fraudulent securities that they created to cash in again.
So it's a Ponzi scheme that took over the world.
An industrial strength assembly line Ponzi scheme. It's made huge. Now, when somebody in the U.S., for example, forecloses, they have their house foreclosed upon, they lose, let's say, $100,000. The banks on Wall Street make $6 million. They make $6 million. So, of course, it's because they have the credit default swap. They made the bet that the homeowner would foreclose. Then they got the homeowner to sign off on fraudulent documents when they signed the mortgage to begin with. Then they resold those mortgages fraudulently into the securities market, guaranteeing that it someday would come when the homeowner would foreclose, they couldn't pay on their debt, and then the banks cash in again. 30-to-1 leverage. So it's an assembly line of fraud, and of course Wall Street's paying themselves $140 billion record bonuses this year at the end of the year for their Christmas bonus for having committed the biggest massive fraudulent securities boondoggle in the history of the United States, and they're paying themselves hundreds of billions of dollars. I didn't hear Greenspan suggest that the banks on Wall Street should be confiscating, have that wealth confiscated at the end of the year. If he's saying it's fraud, and we all know it is fraud, then how come he's not saying, and other folks are not saying that, okay, then if the American people own these banks after bailing them out and they've committed fraud, then give us back our $140 million. Don't pay yourself that in bonuses, number one. Number two, start paying us back some of the other money you stole. Where's the the money back to us.
No, Max. Instead, they're saying we want global VAT, global carbon. We're going to have this new Bank of the World around the IMF. You're going to pay taxes to us. We're going to have a partially gold-backed SDR. So when they talk about fraud, they just want to be able to shut down their competition.
Well, yeah, I mean, Robert Zoellick, who's the president of the World Bank at the G20, started talking about a global gold-backed security, gold-backed currency. Now, up until that statement, every time I came on your show and others came on your show, the Salentes or Peter Schiff or anybody who's been on your show, Bob Chapman, talking about this, of course, they were met with a wall of derision up until a few days ago. Now it's mainstream news. Robert Zoellick is talking about a global currency that will impart respect to some degree gold. So this is the beginning now of a global currency that has a gold component, and it's the beginning of the end of the dollar as a world reserve currency. Even Zoellick himself said at the G20 meeting, the era of dollar as world reserve currency is now over. He said it right in the minutes of the meeting. There's no debate about it anymore. And what we're talking about, how this is all going to go down, is basically like we saw during the creation of the euro. Remember, those countries simply traded in all their local currencies for the euro. Well, what we're going to see are the U.S. and other countries are going to be swapping the dollar.
Stay there. And that's going to be the code. Hi, this is Alex Jones. Did you know that the global elite are now storing non-hybrid seeds in secret storage vaults near the Arctic Circle? Did you know that in a real meltdown, non-hybrid seeds can become more valuable than silver or gold? It's true, seeds have outperformed even gold and silver before in this country, and it's possible that could even happen again. So our friends at Solutions from Science have put together the perfect mix of non-hybrid seeds. They call it a survival seed bank, and it can produce an endless supply of nutrient-dense food for you and your family. And here's the best part. These seeds have not been genetically modified in any way, and you actually get enough seeds to plant a full-acre crisis garden. So visit them today at survivalseedbank.com. That's survivalseedbank.com, or give them a call at 877-327-0365. That's 877-327-0365. Remember, in a real crisis, non-hybrid seeds are the ultimate barter item. This is Alex Jones for survivalseedbank.com.
Pure water. What could be better than the gift of health for your loved ones? And who better to help you give the gift this holiday season than BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com? If those on your gift list are drinking or bathing in unfiltered city or well water, chances are that water is contaminated with rust, bacteria, chlorine, and fluoride. For just pennies a day, Berkey Water Filters remove dangerous contaminants from both well and city water, is powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water, and is great for camping and emergencies. Right now, GCN listeners get 5% off all ceramic filter systems and free shipping on orders over $50. Purchase any filter system from BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com to get your choice of Berkey Sport bottles, a KDF shower filter, a set of fluoride filters, or the new sight glass spigot, absolutely free. Visit BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com or call 877-99-BERKEY today. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY. Give the gift of health at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com today.
Hurricanes, ice storms, blackouts, and the prospect of civil unrest. When the unexpected happens, will you be ready? Hundreds of concerned citizens across America have already installed wind generators to help protect their families in the event of a disaster. So act now and build your own wind generator with an easy-to-assemble kit from WindBluePower.com. Wind Blue Power carries the best battery charging wind generators and permanent magnet alternators in the country. Our 12-volt wind generator kits are also great for small cabins and campers. And all Wind Blue Power kits qualify for a 30% tax credit. So get your discount now. Go to WINDBLUE Power.com today and enter coupon code RADIO for 5% off, or simply call 800-976-0026. 800-976-0026. Protect your family's emergency energy needs now at WindBluePower.com.
Coming up in about 45 minutes from now, I'm going to show you the real puppet masters, not George Soros. Max Keiser's our guest. When they made everybody turn their currencies into the euro, if you go and pull it up, depending on the nation, 10, 15, 20, 30% loss in currency valuation. So it's a kind of a hidden bank holiday devaluation system. Max Keiser, you've called all this with precision. Please continue with what you were breaking down of how they're going to do this, how you see them carrying this out.
Right. So, like we saw with the creation of the euro, the U.S. is in a situation right now where they cannot pay down their debt. No matter, they could collect 100% of taxes of all of the revenues, and they'd not be able to pay down this debt. If people paid 100% of their income as tax, you've got $14 trillion in budget deficit and another 50 or 60 trillion in other debts in the country. So the U.S. is technically bankrupt. So they're either going to default on their government bonds, or they can inflate the currency to death. Those are the one and two choices. The third choice, when either of those two don't work, is to swap dollars for this new global currency, which means that for the average American, the effect will be, as far as economically, they won't be much different. However, they will have lost their sovereignty, and that's the key. Just like European countries lost their individual sovereignty and now answer to Brussels as the bureaucracy that governs Europe, Americans will exchange their sovereignty for a global currency, and they'll answer to a global World Bank institution. But they won't suffer any immediate economic consequences, and so they'll take that easier, softer way. Within a few years, of course, they'll suffer, as anyone does who's living under the yoke of a foreign occupation. But America will gladly swap for this global currency because they'll sell it. They'll be sold to them as a painless way to transition out of these debts.
Well, Max, I couldn't say it any better than that. So what do we do to counter this?
Well, I mean, yeah, the people who are in a position to make effective policy to maintain America's sovereignty would be Bernanke and Geithner and these people. They are the people on the front lines. The job of the Fed is to protect the currency, and that's their primary job, and they've abdicated that responsibility. They are working hand in glove with the folks who, like Robert Zoellick over at the World Bank, to create this new global currency. And so they're the guys who are in a position to do something about it. Now, if you're talking about what can individuals do, I have been talking on your show for a long time now about the people who I call the gold and silver vigilantes, people like John Embry up in Canada, Sprott Asset Management, who's taking physical delivery. And you see what's happening in silver. The silver market in the last couple of weeks is a direct result of these guys who I call the silver vigilantes demanding physical delivery of their silver and busting.
Because there's limited supplies. The J.P. Morgan and others have been caught manipulating gold and silver market by physically taking it. It shows that they're naked shorting the market with gold and silver that doesn't exist.
Yeah, they sold silver that doesn't exist. So they've sold 100 times more silver. And we know this from the testimony from the whistleblower from the London Bullion Markets Association just a couple of months ago. And someone will be on my show, Keiser Report, with some blockbuster news they're going to be breaking on my show in a couple of weeks. But we know that the London Bullion Markets Association, during this whistleblower testimony, is short 100 times the silver that they actually have in the vault. So they've been selling contracts tied to silver that doesn't exist. So what these huge fund managers, these gold and silver vigilantes, as I call them, what they're doing now is they're forcing the issue. And this is what's behind this huge move in silver, and we see a huge move in gold. So those guys are the heroes. Those guys are taking on the central bank crooks.
And they already tried to kill the whistleblower ramming his car. He better get his info out faster. He's going to be deader than a hammer. Max, we're back in 70 seconds.
This is GCN, the Genesis Communications Radio Network.
Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
They have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, there are